remember that door closing being the biggest fear I had to deal with as a child. As I grew older, I learned new ways to try and cope. Most of the time, I would battle my fear with trying to find something to look forward to. Yeah, my mom won't be home with me when I get back from school, but at least I get to play with my new Star Wars Episode 1 racer game. And at least I get to see her for an hour before I leave, and at least she loves me enough to work as hard as she can to provide for us. And at least I have a mom. But those at least would always quickly turn into why nots. Why do I have to stay alone? Why isn't my dad around? Why aren't my parents together? Why am I so scared? Why do I have to feel so alone? Before you know it, so much time passes by without you getting an answer to your question that you just learn to live between the at least and the why not. And so you close the door on finding an answer to your questions and decide to live in this weird space of gratefulness and frustration. And you aren't even aware of it. You feel like something got robbed from you, but you can't even find a person to blame that on. So your anger feels misdirected, bottled, and immaterial. And yet you want to be grateful, but you find it so difficult in light of all of your bottled frustrations. So you live a life dancing between two worlds, both growing with immense potential, creativity, and big boss energy, all the while suffering the cuts of a blade that dug in long ago by that phantom arm that forced it in. So who am I mad at? Everyone and no one. Then we add another both revolutionary and subtle layer on all of this. How do I contextualize all of these emotions and experiences in light of my faith? And the reality that even in all of those moments, God was there. And he loves me. Another way to ask this is, did I have to go through all of that? Was all of it necessary? It wasn't necessary, but it happened. And I used it. You see, not every interaction between me and my oldest daughter, for example, is necessary, and there are a fair share that happen that to her do not feel good. Sometimes mistakes happen. Sometimes I enforce a rule on her. No. Sometimes she makes a mistake and hurts herself. Sometimes someone else interacts with her out of my control. Yeah, the circumstances shift constantly. That changes. But you want to know what doesn't change? My love for her. Wow. The common denominator here is an interaction between parent and child, where the child is growing in their understanding of this world and the parent is doing their best in love while helping shape the child without forcing them to be. Or else that wouldn't be love. One of my greatest pains growing up was always feeling alone. It's like no matter what I do, the residue of that pain remains in my life today and colors every decision that I make, even to this day. What I mean is that it goes so deep that there's like a filter over my thoughts, over things I believe of myself, over my interactions with others. Every thought I have goes through that filter and changes the truth of that experience, even if it's ever so slightly. And you know what's even crazier? We all have one. So we learn how to evolve with our filters. We graduate to bigger at leasts, not knowing that they carry with them those hidden why nots. At least God loves me. At least it is better now. At least I'm at a healthier place now. At least he has a purpose for me. But why do I still yell at my kids? But why do I struggle to let people take pictures of me? Why can't I stop shopping to make myself feel better? Why do I feel like I'll never meet my potential? So the at least become brighter, more beautiful forms of worship, and the canyon between the two of those becomes wider, more subtle, more ingrained into our inner thoughts rather than overt and on the forefront of our mind. It feels like those thoughts are dying. It feels like that pain is dying. And in many ways, they did, but not in the ways that we wanted them to. Instead of dying so that they could be replaced with life, they died and lifted up altars of hopelessness that we call graves. Listen, all of the thoughts that we have that arise from our undealt with pain create a cemetery in you that kills who God made you to be. Many of us have heard the famous quote, "The wealthiest place in the world is not the gold mines of South America or the oil fields of Iraq or Iran. They are not the diamond mines of South Africa or the banks of the world. The wealthiest place on the planet is just down the road. It is the cemetery. There lie buried companies that were never started, inventions that were never made, best-selling books that were never written, and masterpieces that were never painted. In the cemetery is buried the greatest treasure of untapped potential." And that's crazy when we think about all of the people in this world who died with unmet potential. It can be awe-inspiring to think of all of those people, and many times it moves us. It makes us think that we don't want to end up just like them. So we hear the quote and we think, I've got to move. And that works for a while. But before we know it, we go back to the same thoughts and behaviors that got us there in the first place. So what if instead of thinking of the cemetery down the road, what if instead we thought of the cemetery inside of us? What are all of the things that died inside of us before its time? What are the painful things that we went through that closed off the latch to things that God intended to use us for? How many paintings did you decide not to paint because somebody told you that your art wasn't good enough? How long ago was it that you decided to stop singing so passionately because somebody told you that becoming a singer was unrealistic? When did you start emulating all of the angry characteristics of your dad, becoming angry at almost seemingly everything so that he could somehow see you more? When did you decide that recording your memories through photos and videos was no longer of value for you because you're not comfortable with the skin that you're in? When did the lies start? When did the light die inside of you? And when will you bring it to God so that He can unlock that door? I remember that door closing being the biggest fear I had to deal with as a child. Now, as an adult, my greatest anticipation is to see the doors that God is getting ready to open for me. And I'm here to tell you, He wants to shift your thoughts about it too. When did you start becoming... Oh, let me wait for the train. Oh, so many cars, so many cars. Yes, 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 there are so many cars. Okay, we're done.